All right, this is Roger Martin from Billings, Montana. This is from Tony Robbins, NAC, Sydney, 2017. He says 3 things that cause suffering: loss, less, and never. And so we got to learn to control those things and those associations when that comes up.
Loss of time or money or respect or love or opportunity, you will suffer. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm going to have to zoom in on this, but 3 things that end suffering: appreciation and enjoy. 1, 2, learn and grow. 3, love, give, and be grateful.
What do I mean by leverage? I mean you must get to the point where you believe that something must change, that you must change it, and that you can change it right. Gosh, you know, changing would be too fearful, too painful. So in order to make a change last, you got to get to that point where it must change, you must change it, and you can change it. That is number 1.
So Tony talks about how you must convince yourself, and this is not a minor must, this is an absolute must, that you must change. It is so painful. If you don't, you're just not going to go there.
Tired of it and they can't take it anymore. You remember the movie, don't you? I'm mad as heck and I'm not going to take it anymore. You got to get to that point. That's called leverage. That's when change happens. And you know what? When they're to that point, my job is easy. I simply go to step 2.
All right, so Tony, just to show you how important that interrupting this pattern is, this gal is crying and saying, you know, her and her husband's relationship is where it should be. He's got this glass of water. He throws it in her face. He says, "What the hell are you doing? Are you crazy?"
She knew I cared, even though I seemed a little crazy, and she started laughing. She goes, "What are you doing? That's crazy." And she's dripping the stuff off her face. I said, "Nothing. Just tell me about you and your husband." She said, "Oh, we're fine." I said, No. Come on, tell me. I got to tell me one more time. Well, a little bit more water. After that, anytime she thought about her husband, she started to crack up. She said, "We're absolutely fine." That's called leverage and interrupting somebody's pattern. Water was the leverage, and the pattern interrupt happened over and over again until pretty soon she couldn't play it again. When she thought about her husband, she started to laugh. And out of laughter, she was able to come up with some better solutions on her own. She wasn't stuck in the pattern. Does that make sense?
She wasn't stuck in this negative pattern. You have to break it up. You have to catch it, and you have to break it up. You have to catch it, and you have to break it up. So Tony talks about associating pain to the current negative association or pattern. And it's got to be a great deal of pain.
I said, "How come?" She said, "Well, if I'm not committed to him, if I don't love him 100%, he's got to feel that. And if he doesn't feel loved at 100%, then he probably won't give me 100%, and then I won't feel loved, and then that'll make me mad, and that'll just generate all kinds of problems." I said, "Isn't that what's already happening?" And she said, "Yeah, it is." And so what I got her to do is begin to associate what? Pain to her present behavior, to her present pattern, so that she'd absolutely feel like it must change now. And we went more and more and more until she began to tell me if she didn't do this, what a lousy role model it would be for her children, and how even if she divorced him, no man would ever feel totally loved by her or would ever commit to her if she wasn't willing to commit. Till pretty soon there was so much pain associated with not changing, she felt like she had to. And I said, "If you were to change, what would happen?" And she said, "Well, gosh, there's a good chance that if I did change, that he, in fact, would, give all his love to me, too, and our relationship would get better, and our home life would be better." And she went on and on and on with all the pleasure. I'd accomplished step 1 without a doubt.
So he not only associated terrible pain with not changing behavior, but also opposite, great joy would happen if they did the behavior. So both.
And I want to create a new empowering pattern of association. So I said, "Have you ever driven a car?" She said, "Well, yeah." I said, "Have you driven a car down a 2-lane highway that winds through the mountains where all that was separating you from the cars coming from the other direction was a little yellow line?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I got a question for you. Is it possible that even though you were committed to driving on your side of the line, that the people on the other side were not as committed? Is that possible?" She said, "Well, yeah." I said, "Do you have any guarantee that just by your being committed to stay on your side of the line, that they're going to stay on theirs too?" She said, "Well, no." I said, "In fact, is it possible that you could experience a lot of pain driving a car like that? That the cars that are coming the other way 55 miles an hour might accidentally, even without meaning to hurt you, come on your side and crash and kill you instantly. Is that possible?" She said, "Well, of course." I said, "Then I got a question for you. How could you possibly drive on a road like that? How could you possibly drive through the mountains knowing they're cars of people you don't even know who are coming down the highway at the opposite side when you don't even know they're committed? And then I smiled. She just said she didn't know her husband was committed to her. I said, how do you do that? How do you drive down a road and commit to your side not knowing what they're going to do? She said, well, you just got to trust. I said, oh. And I said, what happens if you don't trust? She said, well, then you can't get from here to there. Then you're trapped. I said, oh. And what she began to do was create a new association that she was trapping herself. I said, you mean you can't have what you want if you don't just trust and commit? She said, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. That's true. So what did I do? I interrupted her old pattern, and I simultaneously helped her to create a new one. I said, let me ask you a question. What's the best way to receive love? She said, well, to give love. I said, well, when you're being totally loving, do you usually receive love even without trying? She said, oh, yeah. And I got her to associate that committing and giving love meant receiving tons of love. At the end of this point, I said, let me ask you a question. What if your husband doesn't commit to you? What if you give him 100% and he doesn't give back? She said, well, look, some man will appreciate it. And if I'm always giving, I'm going to have a man in my life who appreciates it. There's no doubt about it. And I said, so what are you committed to doing? She says, I'm committed to go give him 1,000%. Give him everything I got of myself. If that scares him, I'll give him even more. If that scares him, I'll give him even more. And if he disappears and runs off, well, that's his loss. But I'm going to really go for it 100%. And she did. Simply by changing her associations. Go through the 3 steps. Get leverage. Get where you must change. 2, interrupt the pattern. 3, create a new association that empowers you.